recording is in progress, and it's fun because we're recording on a Friday, folks. It's Friday, November 14th, 2025, year of our Lord. For all of those online that love it when we say those last general statement, I try to think if that was Facebook or YouTube, whatever it
It
was. But
was
we're
Facebook.
back.
It was
It was
Facebook.
it was Facebook. Um, but we're back with another Detroit City Sportscast, a full-on regular cast edition. I think the last time we did this was about a month ago, maybe a little more than that, maybe a little less than that. Time is going like this for the most part. But Garrett Comat's here, joined as always by the production maestro for the Majors Detroit, Adam Hernandez. Adam, how are you this evening?
I'm doing all right. Glad it's made it to the weekend, so that's always a positive. And yeah, we got a busy weekend this weekend with obviously the Lions, and we got the Red Wings tomorrow and Pistons right now. So
Yeah. And we were going to originally record on Wednesday, but life got in the way. We realized it was better. And I'm glad now that we waited those 2 days, just from some of the fresh things that I think we've seen so far lately in the Detroit sports world. So life has a way of, deciding things good and bad. Let's start off with the Detroit Lions, who are going into Sunday's game with the Philadelphia Eagles at 6-3. It's insane that we're already over the halfway point of this 2025 NFL
yeah,
season.
the season's
Um,
flying by.
yeah. And the Lions are coming off a 44-22 win over the Washington Commanders, where after a very surprising loss to the Minnesota Vikings at Ford Field on November 2nd, a lot of questions were being asked, a lot of uncertainty, especially related to offensive performance. I think, Adam, when we last recorded our full episode, it was right after the Kansas City Chiefs game, in which while we did have a lot of concern and discussion about the refereeing issues, we saw some of the things of offensive inconsistency. And while the Lions defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football to go into the bye, it was a rough offensive performance, but the defense stepped up massively. So Dan Campbell on Sunday, in Washington, is all of a sudden seen wearing glasses, looking at this big gigantic play calling board, which didn't seem like it was well-known news. And the Lions responded in kind with maybe one of their best offensive performances. I say it's their best offensive performance in Cincinnati, with the fluidity with Jared Goff, with Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. What about you? What did you feel like from the win offense on Sunday? Do you rank that like I do, or do you say it's even one up compared to what we had seen in some of the other games this season?
Yeah, I definitely think it was a nice, refreshing change of pace because obviously coming out of that Minnesota game, I mean, you've had as much scrutiny in this era of the Lions at this present day as you've probably ever had. You know, as far as I can think back with this right now, I mean, you kind of got glimpses of the like the time before Ben Johnson. Obviously, a lot of Lions fans will be able to remember Anthony Lynn and everything that went on with Anthony Lynn at the time when he was running the offense and just kind of how stagnant it looked before Dan Campbell ultimately took over play calling duties with that. Um, and then things started to turn around. And it's kind of like what we saw, this time around. Now, I'm not saying John Morton is going to be the next Anthony Lynn or anything like that, but um, it definitely seemed like things needed to, kind of switch gears a little bit. And John Morton was, kind of blaming the offensive line, and the offensive line wasn't having it. And, the whole JMO thing with him not getting the touches, which, that was, and a lot of people out there are going to probably think that, oh, well, anybody can come in and be the offensive coordinator for this offense because There's so many different weapons, whether it's Amon-Ra, whether it's JMO, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Gibbs, whether it's Montgomery, whether it's
Florida.
Laporta. Yeah, I mean there's just guys all around, and you kind of run into another problem when you have all those different weapons is the reality that there's not enough ball to go around in that
Yeah.
sense. And luckily enough, there's hardly any, if any, ego guys on this team. Obviously, JMO, he was kind of raising some eyebrows with some of the stuff that he was saying on, or, maybe implying on social media. But that was basically it. And then you had Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell did what, a leader of a team is supposed to do, a CEO of a team is supposed to do, and, just kind of take things over for a little bit. And the offense looked good. I mean, after the game, you had David Montgomery praising how things went. You had Jared Goff talking about, praising how things went. All of a sudden, JMO was inserted back into the equation when it came to
The lead
what
receiver on the day too.
what the team was doing offensively. And um yeah, it was a refreshing thing to see, especially since it seems like a lot of teams, and especially the Lions have always had the tendency to kind of wait things out and change things up when it was too late. And that didn't happen this time around. Dan Campbell stepped right in and assumed play calling duties from John Morton. And we went from there, and all of a sudden you put 44 up on the Washington Redskins, which I know isn't, that big of a feat, but coming off that Minnesota game, you it was needed. It was a needed change of pace and something that I'm sure the guys in that offense, the players in that offense, um, needed to see again coming off that Minnesota game.
How did you feel about John Morton's response yesterday, where it seemed because that was going to be the thing, like people were going to be like, "How is he going to react to this?" And John basically was saying that he was all for it, he understood it because it's like his still doing the work throughout the week, and he's like, whatever we need to do to win, the right things are definitely said with that. Do you feel like that's like a fully on board when you look at a guy that's been he's been in the league for a long time, different few handful of teams, right? Um, and do you see that as also like adding to the spark? Like he's aware, like, hey, this is going to be our best chance to get something this year.
I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, he said all the right things, which was nice. I mean, he didn't add to any of that public facing, he didn't add any logs to the fire when it came to that, any potential public facing scandal or scrutiny or controversy or whatever it is you want to call it. So that was good to see. But I mean, at the same time, too, I mean, what else is he going to say? I mean, at this point right
Right.
now, I mean, he's lucky he has a job at this point right now because I'm sure there's other coaches, head coaches out there that may have axed him at that point. Um, Especially where this team is right now. This is a team that is a contender to not only win the division or win the NFC, but this is a team that can win the Super Bowl. And you don't want to screw around with anything like that. And John Morton knows that. Dan Campbell knows that, and the rest of this team knows that. That you don't want to screw things up, and you want to say the right things because if you don't say the right things, you become a distraction. If you don't do the right things, then all of a sudden you can accumulate losses. And again, that's not where this team wants to be right now, especially in an NFC North that is, excuse me, that is very, very competitive right now. So there's
Yeah.
little room for error if you're A, looking to win the division, B, get home field throughout the playoffs, and then C, win the Super Bowl. So
In addition to the NFC North, you also have the NFC West because you have the NFC West and the NFC North are trying to duel it out for who can get their teams into the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
Three teams in each division with significantly good records. Even the Bears are 6-3, right? I think it was what the Packers are 5-3-1.
Hmm.
The Bears are 6-3. The Lions are 6-3. And then the NFC West, you might be able to look it up from here on there right now. NFC West, you have I believe a 7-2. I believe one of the NFC West teams hasn't been on a bye yet. So that might be a 6-4. I feel like it's 7-2, 6-3, 6-4. I could be wrong on that, but that's why I leave it to you. And then obviously Philadelphia, who's got a comfortable advantage in the NFC East right
Yeah,
now.
you've got
So
Seattle and the Rams both at 7-2 right now. San Francisco at 6-4, and then Arizona at 3-6.
yeah, and you look at it right now, and what Philly's 7-2, right?
Philly is, yes, 7-2.
So I mean, right now it's you and the Lions still have to go to Inglewood to take on the Rams, who are Matt Stafford, who seems to be Benjamin. It's been I remember Katie Nolan referred to Matthew Stafford as Benjamin Button, like
Hmm.
as the look as like getting younger as he's continuing to play throughout the National Football League. Well, also it seems like he keeps revitalizing himself more and more and more, like um the fountain of life with the year that he's having right now. And
Yeah, and it's no, and that's I mean, obviously it's if you're a Lions fan, some things are a little bittersweet. I mean, obviously, I don't want to see Matthew Stafford have any
right,
success at this point because he doesn't play for the Lions anymore, and he plays for the Rams, and the Rams are going to be a team that the Lions are going to have to compete with here pretty soon. Well, if not now, they're
they're going to be there in a month's time.
yeah,
And
directly. The the thing though with Matthew Stafford is, I mean, as far as the Rams go, yes, it's great that he's doing what he's doing, but you always get a little worried with those quarterbacks who are at the age that he is at because once you hit that wall,
you hit that wall.
you hit that wall and it's done. I mean, when I know people want to say, "Oh, well, look what Tom Brady did," well, that's Tom Brady, and you always hate to make that comparison, but
Hey
when
man,
Tom Brady hit that wall, he hit the wall and he was done. Um, I mean, it's and that's and that could and I'm a firm believer that that could happen at any time with Matthew Stafford. So, um,
going to
yeah,
happen with Aaron Rodgers too. It's going to happen with Russell Wilson.
would it happen with
Insert.
Russell Wilson?
Yeah,
It,
fair.
I
Well,
mean, and I mean, as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, yeah, he's still somewhat effective right now, but I mean. He's even discussed that this is, maybe his last year in the league. But I mean, again, I mean, once you hit that wall, you hit that wall. And Matthew Stafford isn't a guy right now who is, you know, who's been completely free of injury throughout his career. I mean,
yeah.
more recently he's been having that back issue. So,
And I think
um,
that, but the point I think in particular is when you look at all these teams, every single game for the Lions is going to count when you look at the level of the um, six other teams that are right now in the running outside of it in the rest of the NFC in the rest of the NFC. We haven't even talked about the South. We haven't even talked about Tampa. We haven't talked about like Carolina could sneak in as a wild card too. Carolina went to Lambeau and beat Green Bay. This isn't, this is one of those
that
things
might
where
that might
it's,
say more about Green Bay though than it does about Carolina.
but they're still close.
Sure.
Carolina could get hot enough where they could take that seventh playoff spot. Point
Yeah,
being is the teams that are relatively close to have a very good chance this year, which is why you got to make every game. You got to, if you win your games as much as possible, which is why the Minnesota one, I think, sucks. Had this been Christmas Day, Adam would have had another prediction right because he did say that the Lions would lose at Minnesota on Christmas Day. So you're halfway there right now.
Well, I think after that Minnesota game, I think the Lions. I mean, if I can go back and repick that now, I'm gonna go. I would go ahead and pick the Lions now to win
In
on
Philly,
Christmas Day in Minnesota in hindsight. So after what happened, almost 2 weeks ago now. So,
Yeah,
uh,
let's real quick to let's talk about Sunday. Sunday night football, 8:20 p.m. Eastern, 6-3 Lions, 7-2 Philly. Um, Defending Super Bowl champs, team that's represented the NFC 2 out of the last 3 seasons. Reigning NFL MVP in Saquon Barkley. Um, yeah, Jalen Hurt. You have the ever-ending issue. It's like, what is AJ Brown gonna say about about the Philadelphia offense? But you have a really tough team and a strong D line, interior defensive line as well, and and obviously another thing that might be talked about definitely was talked about. That 97, I'm not fully enjoying the fact that I always had 97 one of my rides home a little bit more, but sometimes it's because my other podcast that I checked out, I listened to on the drive in from work. So, um, but the one thing that was talked about today was Dan Campbell. I don't want to say defending Philadelphia's tush push, but making a case for it to not be banned, not be to have it in the game because it is something that a team is good at and it's something that opposing teams need to figure out, in particular Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions, how to stop it. And one of the teams that voted for the tush push to remain in the offseason. Um, so when you think about things like that, when you listen to what Dan Campbell's saying, do you already feel like he's like, I don't say he's the madman like that was that Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, but the big board with all the dots, the whistles, like the mathematic problems and stuff like that. Do you think Dan Campbell is trying to do something similar with that, with the already the tush push, or do you think he's already just saying, or do you think he's already got like, fuck it, I got a plan, let's see what happens?
I mean, I don't know if he has a plan or anything like that for it. I think, I mean, Dan Campbell's a pretty innovative guy, and I'm sure he can respect innovation in the NFL.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, he came out and he said he was a purist and, things like that. Again, ultimately, you're saying the right things because you don't want to come off as, a crybaby or, a whiner about a play that has, up until this point is a legal play
right,
and has been, very successful in the NFL. But something that's obviously worked for the Eagles. And he does, I mean, there is a point to be made for that, that, if, it is a legal play and, if, the people that have a problem with it, the teams that have a problem with it, the executives, the coaches, the players that have a problem with that are the ones that simply can't stop it. Now, of course, you
right.
hear the other side of the argument too, um, as far as, maybe potential, let arguments against it, which could, impact, the maybe integrities of the game on the field. But like I said, I think Dan Campbell being an innovative coach is understanding the angle is understanding it from that angle, excuse me. Um, and I think that's all there is to it. It's that's the character of Dan Campbell. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to go out there and bitch and complain about something that is legal in the NFL right now. Dan Campbell's always been a guy that is, that puts a lot of faith into his guys and his team, and he's going to beat you that way, not by, crying and complaining to the NFL about, oh, well, this play's unfair. No, he believes in his guys that they can go out. And that's the great thing about Dan Campbell too, is I
Yeah.
think that, aside from the innovation is um he's a guy that truly believes in his players.
Hmm.
And he truly believes that his players can go out and be effective against it and win this game, despite all of the talk surrounding the tush push. from other teams and other players, executives, coaches, whatever around the NFL. So, and again, that's why I think that's why his players love him. It's because of reasons like that.
Yeah.
He believes in them, and he believes, as cheesy as that may sound, he believes that they can go out and beat them despite the tush push. So, yeah.
So so I'll end this with two questions. The Lions will if the Lions beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday to go to 7-3 and be up there for near tops of the NFC, going gunning for the top seed. It's going to be because of why.
Why would they beat the Eagles this
Yeah.
weekend?
It's going to be what would be the reasons why? What would we see from or why do, or the Lions will win because of this happened?
Um, I think obviously they're going to need to put together a strong game plan defensively, as cliche as that sounds. Um, and I would think, that they need to I mean, you look at what they were doing last week. I mean, it starts with the offensive line. Offensive line had a really, really good game, and that opened things up for Jahmyr Gibbs. And when you open things up on the run game, all of a sudden you open things up through the air as well. So I mean, I don't think there's any one thing um, that is going to contribute to any possible Lions win on Sunday. I think the Eagles are too good for that. They're too good of a team for it to come down to one thing. It's going to be collective from both ends or both sides of the ball. Calvin Shepard's going to have to put together a good defensive game plan, especially up against a guy like Jalen Hurts, who, the Lions do have a history of having trouble with that running quarterback. So, um, you're going to have to mind Jalen Hurts. And obviously, on the offensive side of things, you want to see kind of a repeat of what happened last week against Washington. A strong showing from the offensive line that opens up so many other areas of the offense that is incredibly deadly for the Lions.
So I'll then ask the other question, the other part of it. If the Lions fall short in Philadelphia, what do you think would be like the key reasons why? And you can say it has something to do with, and if you don't feel like it's so much with the Lions, whether it's or if you feel like it's something of the strength of the Eagles.
Well, I mean, the Lions are going to be going to this one, not again at full strength. Um, Mick Robertson's dealing with an ankle injury. It sounds like he's going to play. Um,
We have injuries to
yep,
Sam Laporta's out,
yep,
Kirby Joseph's out,
Yep, Terrion Arnold's out with a concussion. Yeah, you said Sam Laporta. He is out with what is it? A back injury, I believe.
something. I didn't
Yeah, I think
catch
it's
the
a
whole
back
thing.
injury, and then Kirby Joseph is still dealing with the knee injury. Um, you're still without Reed, you're still without Marcus Davenport, who are practicing but aren't cleared yet.
Josh
Um,
Pascal.
Josh Pascal is going to be out as well. So, I mean, this is a still beaten and battered Lions team, and I don't want to attribute any Lions loss to injuries, but when you start missing three key guys like Terry and Arnold, like Kirby Joseph, and like Sam Laporta, that makes things a little bit more difficult. I know Nolan Bianchi came out with an article today in the Detroit News about how they're trying Jackson Meeks at tight end because of things that kind of caught their eye during practice. Um, so I mean that's kind of where things are at right now with the Lions in the injury bug right now is they're trying Jackson Meeks out at tight end. And that's I mean you could look at the injuries, but also Jackson Meeks was um he was a he raised some eyebrows during preseason. and he had his moments during preseason, and it was a little surprising because I believe they did cut him after preseason was over, if I remember correctly, and then they ended up bringing him back.
Yeah.
Um, and that was simply because they're again, um, just the wide receiver room just being completely stacked for the Lions, and there just wasn't a place for him. So, this kind of opens things up for him when it comes to, possibly taking some reps at tight end. So, um, I think injuries could in play a part in, a potential Lions loss, definitely, especially against a good team like the Eagles on the road.
So after tonight, the next three games for the Lions are going to all be at Ford Field. The New York Giants come to town on November the 23rd. So be a fun banter one for some of our friends. And then two Thursday games in a row. The Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving. This year it's going to be a little bit different. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. So if you're part of a family that is waiting to do dinner until after the Lions game's done, dinner's going to be a bit later this year, folks. And then Thursday night football on Amazon Prime, or it'll probably be on the locals as well. That'll be against the Dallas Cowboys on December the 4th. But I think the Lions deleted something, a post about it, but it seems like a common thing that they are advising fans to be wearing white for that one. So one would think. One would think originally if they would go all white, although the fears of people of the Lions wearing silver pants seemed, I can think, be at least quelled somewhat after Sunday's win. So who knows? It might be the white and silvers, could be that. Maybe they roll white pants with the blue. I don't know. We got them 3 weeks to find out for that. But um, all starts with how the Lions will do in Philadelphia this coming Sunday, 8:20 p.m. NBC Sunday Night Football. All right, I'm handing it off to you, Adam, for our next topic to lead.
Yeah, Detroit Pistons. Man, what's their record right now? Is it
10-2.
10-2?
Best record, best start to a season since 2005, 2006.
Yep. Coming off a big win. I don't want to say it's a big win in the sense of who they had to play that
Yeah.
game because it was very much a G League team. You're without Cade Cunningham, you're without Jalen Duren, you're without Oscar Thompson, you're without Tobias Harris, you're without just
Isaiah
go
Stewart
down. Yep. Beef Stew, you're without. It was
and Ivy and Sasser.
Ivy and Sasser as well. And Sasser right now, I mean, who knows when he's going to back. I've heard some pretty dire um opinions out there when it comes to Marcus Sasser and the injury that he's dealing with, the hip injury he's dealing with now, and when he may or may not return to this team.
Yeah.
Um, which sucks. But the Pistons the other night, um, beating the Chicago Bulls with what was Ron Holland, Duncan Robinson, and really a G League squad that they,
Duncan Robinson, Paul Reed, Ron Holland,
yes,
Dennis Jenkins, Javante Green was your starting
yes,
five.
yes. And again, Dennis Jenkins, obviously hit that buzzer beater in against Washington to bring that game to send that game to overtime where they ended up, Pistons ended up being the Wizards. A game where Cade Cunningham just kind of again, what do you have like 44 points in that game?
46 points, 45
46
shots,
points. Yeah.
and came back after a nasty landing on his hip.
Yeah.
Hip him bad.
So I mean, Garrett, they're in action right now. I've got a 13-9 score against the 76ers. Again, a very, very depleted Pistons roster again tonight. Is
Mhm.
Kate Cunningham in?
No, the only one that's back from the missing crew on Wednesday is Isaiah Stewart. So
Okay,
it's only
so
six injuries. So you're starting five tonight. They went right back at it with Wednesday's starting five. So Duncan, Paul Reed, Ron Holland, Dennis Jenkins, Javante Green. NBA Cup. We at the Majors Detroit are Pro NBA Cup. I don't want to hear any
Yes.
banter on the fucking NBA Cup. Huh? So,
People hate fun. People hate
yeah,
fun.
people
That's
hate
all it
fun.
comes to. That's all it comes
Um,
down to.
Now they are wearing the black statement jerseys that they were 5 and 12 in last year. That I realized that the black statement jerseys may be this current era version of what people thought of the teal jerseys back in the day, the teal
Hmm.
era. Because the vitriol towards the black statement jerseys is is wild. But this is another good vibe, I feel like, with this team. They're playing a Philadelphia 76ers team that is also banged up.
I was gonna
No
say, leave it
Joel.
up to a Crystal Palace supporter that likes the black, red, and blue jerseys, though.
What's the saying? You red and blue, you know it's true. Um, but I mean, so that's the thing. No Joel Embiid, no Paul George for the 76ers. They do have Tyrese Maxey going, who's averaging 33 a game right now. So I think it'll be an good test. But it's just we're seeing something new from this team every game right now. Like when we did the Pistons special with Matt Feldbush. Which, if you haven't checked that episode out, go ahead and do that. That was at the end of October. Pistons were 2-2. They were playing the Magic actually that night, and I think we have seen in each of these 8 wins. I feel like we have seen something new. We've seen a rollouts and performances. We've seen um, Jalen Duren take some considerable steps in growth. Um, Averaging over 19 a game, double, over 10 rebounds a game. Cade Cunningham almost legitimately 10 assists a game. Yes, I know people are going to complain about the 45 shots, but when you're that banged up, you wanted to take charge in that. But you're also seeing some other guys like you're seeing Asar Thompson become like about when he's playing a complete stat player. You're seeing Isaiah Stewart really take great strides. And also that double big lineup that they were rolling out for a couple of games of Duran and Stewart paying off with great dividends. But I honestly think Wednesday is is the icing on the cake. And I'm kind of glad that that's part of my reason why I'm glad we didn't record on Wednesday. Or if we did, we would be live reacting potentially to what we were seeing because we talk about Detroit sports teams and vibes. That's a team, that type of win, that type of performance when you're up, when, like you said, a bunch of two-way players and you are up by 23 on the Bulls, who were only down Josh Giddey at one point in the third quarter. You win by double digits. Paul Reed, 28 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. Great numbers. The only person to do it shooting more than 80% from the field. He was 11 to 13 from the field. Um, I think this team is special. This team believes in each other. They're playing for each other. It's almost as if sometimes JB Bickerstaff doesn't have to fully coach the team because when you got the guys playing well, and right now, yeah, you have guys banged up, but how many people are in young players' ears right now,
And
like educating?
that's the thing too, Garrett. You brought up something very, very key right there too, about JB Bickerstaff and in some sense not having to coach this team. Obviously, he's having to do a lot of coaching tonight. He's had to do a lot of coaching the last game,
Yeah,
considering how many players they were down. And I don't want to, you don't want to take anything away from JB Bickerstaff because
right.
he's a guy that's, that's obviously been a huge part of this team's turnaround right now. Going from Monty Williams to JB Bickerstaff has been huge, but you also
The
mentioned
players are
something.
an extension of him.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we saw how Cade Cunningham was with Monty, and we say how Cade Cunningham is now with Bickerstaff, and it's night and day. Um, Again, you talk about Jalen Duren, you talk about Cade Cunningham. Who do you think has shown the most growth though between those two players? Because obviously Cade Cunningham had the kind of the moxie coming in, being the first overall pick. Um, it was things were kind of expected with him. I'm not saying they weren't expected with Jalen Duren, but Cade Cunningham wasn't a project type of player when he was drafted. He was a
Right.
guy that was going to come in and be effective right off the bat. Jalen Duren wasn't so much that guy, especially where he was drafted, because I think a lot of people have, kind of get the wrong idea when it comes to the NBA draft. They think if you're a first round pick, then all of a sudden, wow, you're the man. You're going to be, almost effective right off the bat. And that's not the case. If you're a guy that falls out of like definitely the top 10 of the NBA draft, then there's going to be a lot of question marks and what and if and when you're going to be able to contribute.
Right.
Um, it's not like the NFL draft. And Duran was a guy that again had a lot of talent, but was seen as a project type of guy.
Raw
Um,
talent.
yeah, and he has certainly come around at this point, and you can certainly see why the Lakers wanted to try to trade for him last season when in the Pistons, I mean, I'm assuming just flat out said no, no way, we're not getting rid of Jalen Duren. Um, so who do you think? Well, I mean, who do you think who has had the most growth on this team, especially when it comes to um Jalen
You're just
Duren?
asking it just to those two in particular, right?
Yeah,
Just between
just
KD?
those two in particular, because I mean because both those guys this season, this young season so far, have shown a tremendous amount of chemistry between the two of them.
Yeah.
And it's really been quite remarkable at the amount of chemistry they've developed between the both of them. So, um,
I feel like
like I
with
said,
Cade is somebody that's becoming we knew how talented Cade was and everything and the ability, but you're seeing what we're seeing now with Cade is now your last season started to be the national recognition. Now the national recognition's full on in for Cade Cunningham. You got Nike promoting Cade Cunningham left and circle on left, right, and center online in their feeds. Even when he goes 14 to 45, they still, you know, he's one of their guys now. And I think his stats that he's doing. But I gotta say, like, if you look at Jalen Duren right now, things I would think back to like, and I think we talked about this last month when we had Matt on. I remember Greg Kelser talking about wanting to see like Jalen Duren expand his game a little bit more, like do the 15, 20 foot shots and everything. And you're seeing a Jalen Duren right now. His foul shooting has gone up leaps and bounds. His like consistency with that, his footwork, his ability to use his offhand. A lot of left hand, turn, standing hook, drive with the left hand. Inheriting some of his the defensive traits from Isaiah Stewart. Because I always felt like that, yeah, Duran's the more like guy to score, but Isaiah's the guy to defend. Where now I'm seeing like Duran, like, if he's getting in there about center, I think to me the raw talent. Now I'm very curious to see like some people might ask, is it because it's Duran's trying to get that bag? Because Duran's trying to get Jalen Duran's playing for a contract essentially. So is it just because of that, or have we just fully unleashed something in him? It's very, very close because Cade's already had very high, high standards from last year, and yet it's gone up a little bit more. Whereas this time round, but I feel like Jalen Duran's like leaps on there. But then when you look outside the big two, this is where it gets fun because Asar Thompson, who's stepped his scoring up, but I think his balance. I think Dennis Jenkins is a revelation though, because you lost
you
Jaden
lost
Ivey,
Dennis, you lost Jaden Ivey, you lost Dennis Schroeder in the offseason.
Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, Simone Fontecchio. Um, and you got a guy that is, fighting for his life basically, a two-way kid, a two-way player like Tolo Smith, like Bobby Clinton's, is getting more and more minutes. Chaz Lanier's a rookie, he's getting spot time too. So there's a lot of hungry guys out there. But Monday saw some poise that you would barely, even like on Wednesday, like he looked like a vet out there. And it's his second year, second full year in the league. This is the most games he's played in there. He's a two-way contract, but now it's like, is he the one like glue piece that we didn't think would be, right? That's where I'm wondering right now because to go what we have with this team in this state is very, very, very impressive. It's very hard. It's going to be very, very, very hard to maintain. Um, but and even like I said, I feel like but there's so many worthy candidates. Like even I was saying Isaiah Stewart was you go 26 and 14 against Memphis and just dropping threes left and right. I'm like, who is this? So it makes me feel like in awe. That's what I was saying. Like when we did the recap Wednesday, I don't think I've done a quick recap. Like I was in awe of what I was seeing. And Wednesday was kind of like that. I mean, yeah, and you can even say Paul Reed too, but that's the thing. That's the thing. It could be anybody. That's the thing. It literally could be anybody on this team.
Well, that's kind of the thing too, is that opportunity on this team is going to start to come somewhat short
Yeah.
because they really are starting to develop a solid starting five. Um, if they're not already there. I mean, this isn't like Pistons teams of, the more recent past where, you know, that starting five was a little bit kind of up in the air a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, you're starting to see guys kind of cement their names into these certain spots on the team. And what we're having right now are guys kind of, like you said, they're making their case. They're hungry guys because they're trying to make that case for this team right now. Um, and I don't know what you think about this, but I mean, the Pistons aren't a number one seed in the East. They're not. I mean, this isn't how things are going to end up with them right now. Um, they're at some point.
If they do something like that, it's because they've gone above their means.
Oh,
And
absolutely. And
it's
they're
and it's
going up. I
because
mean,
of the vibes in each other.
and these past couple of games, you can say that they've gone above their means. Even against the Wizards,
Yeah.
they were probably above their means in that game.
They were on dead
Um,
legs.
yeah,
Especially with how Philly physically beat their ass the night before, it made it difficult.
yes.
The
Yeah,
76ers.
come oh, then that yeah, no, that's another great point too. I forgot that they were coming off of that road game against the Sixers that night, and then all of a sudden turn around and play Washington. Um, so yeah, they were playing again, even though it was the Wizards, they were playing above their means. Um, the Bulls, they had no business winning that game, and they did. Uh, but like I was saying, I mean, I don't this Pistons team right now isn't a I don't even think they're not a one seed, they're not a two seed in the East. Um, do I think maybe they could break into a top four? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Um, and things are going to find their level with this team, and I implore people not to freak out about that when it does happen because it could start to happen tonight. You never know. Um,
You
but
know, they're wearing, like I said, they're wearing the black
yeah,
statement jerseys. I mean, that could,
yeah,
that's,
absolutely. Yeah. So I think what we're seeing right now is, and what people need to take away from this is, I don't know what you think about it, Garrett, but the kind of the capabilities of this team right now. Because when one guy goes down, when key guys go down, you can depend on some of these other guys stepping up and kind of filling these roles. Not obviously not on a permanent basis or not on any long-term basis, because Kate Cunningham, you hope isn't going to be out long term. Jalen
no.
Duren, you hope isn't going to be out long term. Um, you hope you get Tobias Harris back sooner rather than later. Um, and I know originally Jaden Ivey, they were saying, they're going to wait 4 weeks and then start to evaluate him from there. And I know that he was starting to do some shooting around. Um,
He was shooting at the
listen,
Performance Center this
yeah,
morning, apparently.
Yep, he was shooting at the performance center this morning. So hopefully those evaluations are going well and we can see Jaden Ivey back. Um, I don't know, Garrett. I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of maybe this team finding its level, and when that level does happen, where do you think they kind of fall into the East here? Because it's not, I mean, it's not a good East. It's not a
Right
good
now,
East.
you got the standings up right now, conference in the Central, just because, yeah, we're 12 games in right now. And like when you look at our 8 game winning streak, Magic, Mavericks, who are, in a horrific down slump, they just fired Nico. Hired Nico, which, was kind of like what Centel dropped that a few days earlier. Then they beat the Memphis Grizzlies, who were not without their form of drama right now with John Morant. After the Grizzlies, then they went and beat the Utah Jazz because obviously now people are wanting to talk about how to get Lauri Markkanen over here. Then you start off slow against the Nets, and then you have Duran and Cade go dual 30s in Brooklyn, and then you had that grind game against Philadelphia, you beat Washington, you beat Chicago. So on one hand, you could talk about it like, okay, who are the teams with winning records that you beat in that run right now? Chicago, um, Orlando. Like, yeah, well, give me a rundown right now. So, first win in that. What when you got Magic? Where are the Magic at right now?
The Magic right now are holding on to that last play-in spot.
Made
So
some
it's
move.
6-6.
Made a big move in the offseason to get Desmond Bain. So they're, rumored they're trying to take that next step from getting out of the play-ins to, one of the automatics. Second game in that streak was Dallas. Dallas are what, near the bottom of the West?
Dallas is, yep, they're 3-9.
They're 3-9. They've just, let's just let their GM go. I know they're dealing with some injury bug right now with AD. So yeah. Next game after that, the Memphis Grizzlies.
Memphis is one game out of a play-in spot.
Right. So, they'll be in there. Then after that, Utah,
Bottom.
Brooklyn,
Bottom.
Philadelphia.
Where is Philadelphia right now?
I think they're a much more competent side,
Yeah,
76ers
Philly's
side than
Philly's
us.
Philly's at 7-4, third in the East right now.
Yeah. And that's again without Embiid playing, not being permitted to play back-to-back nights. You have Paul George hurt. So, Tyrese Maxey's just, I mean, Andre Drummond. I was telling a friend I often would find myself irritated when Andre Drummond was a Piston, and I found myself at times irritated when he's playing against us until Cade Cunningham dunked over him and posterized him on Sunday. But I don't, let's see if how he reacts to that. And then like Washington, which I believe is still a 1-win team. The Wizards are still a 1-win team, I believe, 1-10 or 1-11, I'm guessing. Um, and then the Bulls were 6-4 going into Wednesday. So
But I mean, the Pistons right now, though, too, they have a very, very favorable schedule
yeah,
coming up. I mean, after tonight, they've got
you
the
go.
Pacers.
Yep,
Then they've got the Hawks after that,
we're without Trey
um,
Young.
who are without Trey Young, are sitting 8-5 in the 5 spot in the East. Um, so, I mean, honestly, kind of looking down here at some of these games, they also have Milwaukee coming up right now, where's Milwaukee at in the East right now? Um, Milwaukee is sitting at that 7 spot in the East. So,
And Milwaukee to me is the measuring stick for this team because the last time the Pistons defeated Milwaukee was January of 2022 in competitive play. I'm not counting the preseason last year. 13 consecutive losses in the regular season to the Milwaukee Bucks. And
yeah.
before that win in January 22, it was 2018 when the Pistons last beat them.
Yeah, and I and
Uh,
I and I don't expect Milwaukee to stay in that 7 spot. I expect Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is going to be a playoff team.
as
I don't
long as
even
Giannis is wearing a Bucks uniform, they are always going to
Yes.
be a contender.
Yes, absolutely. 100% agrees. But like we were saying, I mean, the Pistons are going to it's going to be an important next few weeks for this team because they have a favorable schedule and they're going to need to take advantage of that because
Hmm.
um especially too once late December rolls around and you start getting into the new year,
Yep.
things really start to get a little bit more difficult with this with the schedule. All of a sudden you have the Lakers on. Then you have the Cavaliers back again, and then you're playing Chicago, who is still probably going to be, a little bit of a thorn in your side. Um,
Depends how it all depends on how Giddy and Vucevic are.
yep.
And you stop one or two of them, or one's out, then yeah, you do what you do, play half court and drive in the hoop. But then
Yeah,
yeah, like I
and
said, you said Cleveland. I mean, yeah, Indiana, as banged up as they are, Indiana is the defending Eastern Conference champs.
but
So
that
until
second
they're
half,
out,
but that in that second half of the season too, all of a sudden you've got to go to you got to play Golden State. You got to who else do you have? You have again
you gotta
Oklahoma
eventually have to deal
City.
with Minnesota and Denver. I mean, you gotta. It's going to be, yeah, they beat Houston earlier in the year, which I thought was a really good. That Houston win in game two was fun, especially when you lost Duran to ejection earlier with the flagrant two. So I think there's plenty to feel good about with this team. And I think that there is a general like, hey, this team is looking like they want to take the next step. Now,
Oh,
these next
absolutely.
few weeks, will they take the next step?
And that's what's great about this too is I mean, this is a team that looks like they are on schedule, if not a little bit, if not ahead of schedule
Yeah.
when it comes to, you know, coming back from just that disaster that they of a season they had a couple of years ago in
When
Monty's
you lose
last season.
130, well, you lose 133 games or whatever it was in 2 seasons. Dwayne Casey's last year, and Monty Williams's lone year to then turn it around to what you're doing last season and now is pretty impressive.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting on there. My last fun question to you is, I know we talked about it. Was it Wednesday night before tip off? City Edition uniforms debuted Wednesday. The court, the pomp and circuit, the legendary playing with a bunch of two-way players beating the Bulls. Do you still, where do you, has your thoughts gone up or down at all on the cities from our chat? I know you were like, you were like, you loved it, you liked them, but you didn't like them as much as like the last couple of cities that we had.
I just think if you're going to be inserting teal into your color palette with a jersey, just bring back what you had before.
At least have it be the primary color in that uni.
No, just bring back that jersey. Like just like
You love that design. You love that design.
I mean I wouldn't say I love it. Um it's just do it. I mean like we said, I mean there'd be certain tinkerings that I would do um with what they have now across the board. Like I really like the font that they use on the city jerseys. Um I think that's a
And
good font. It's a nice clean font.
long
Um
live the horse.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, bring back the horse. Just, I mean, why not? It's fun. It's
I'm old enough to remember when the Pistons had a different mascot than Hooper.
what was their mascot?
Sir Slam-A-Lot.
Sir Slam-A-Lot. What was the mascot?
It was basically like a knight, like a round ball dressed in like knighted armor called Sir Slam-A-Lot, and that was like that was the end of the like end of the bat like end of like Isaiah and Lambeer retiring. Grant Hill was a rookie, and we were still wearing like rookie and sophomore, and we were still wearing the red, white, and blue, and then we went to teal and Hooper joined and is still gracing
I
our
don't
presence.
I can't remember Sir Slams a lot. I'm glad we switched to Hooper.
Dude, you know what? we're gonna just one of you, whether you or me, somebody's got to pop a message in with our chat with Matt, being like, "Hey Matt, what was your thoughts on Sir Slam a Lot?" Although Matt might be too young for Sir Slam a
Yeah, he
Lot
might be
too.
too young.
Oh God, bastard!
Because they had the Pistons dance team too. What are
His
they?
dance team's been around for at least 20 plus
I
years.
know, but what are they called though? I thought they have a
Shit.
name.
Yeah, now I'm drawing a blank right now. This is
Um,
also me showing my age right now.
but they
Um,
used to have a dance team, I think, called the Classy Chassis. I think that's what they used to be called. I think. I think. Somebody might want to double check that, but I think that's what it was.
I'm gonna say this as much as like yes, the Lions are like when the Lions are doing good and people are enjoying everything. A great Pistons team does so much for the vibes. Does
Oh,
so
sure.
much
Yeah.
for one's health in this area. If you love the game of especially if you really love the game of basketball. Right now it's I have it. Where are you at in your time frame for you? I'm at 10. You're always ahead of me with what I use. I'm at 10:25 in the second quarter. Duncan Robinson just made a three. It's 32-31 Philly.
I have 38, 31, 9:53 in the second.
God damn it. Yep. That's there's the first Philly three. So yeah, it's always fun and elements. All right. We got anything else we want to talk about Pistons or are you feeling
No,
good?
let's keep moving on because we're already almost an hour in. So
Yep. Detroit Red Wings. Were after going 3-1 in their first four of their road trip, they were 9-4. Only the fifth time recently that the team start won nine of their first 13. The last time that happened was 2010-2011 season. 1-0 loss to Vegas on the last game of their road trip, followed by a 4-1 loss at home to the New York Rangers last Friday, November 7th, and a 5-1 loss to the Chicago Blackhawks. That was horrible to watch on Sunday, November the 9th. Had some people wonder, had the Wings now set at 9-7, questions being asked, power play stalling, a lot of things. Wings back in action yesterday, 1-6-3 over the Anaheim Ducks. Alex DeBrincat had a 3-point night, 2 goals and an assist. Dylan Larkin had a goal and an assist. Um, you also saw like Moritz Seider, Michael Rasmussen, Axel Sandin Pellikka get goals, although Sandin Pellikka did not play the last 15 minutes yesterday's game due to a coach's decision. The Wings are 10-7 right now, 20 points in their first 17 games. They host Buffalo tomorrow night and then are at Madison Square Garden Sunday night to take on the New York Rangers. What do you feel like this Red Wings team is more like 17 games in? Do you feel like it's more like the team we saw on that 5 game road trip bits last night? Or do you feel like it's more like the team that we saw in the 3 game skid with against like Vegas, the Rangers, and the Blackhawks? Or is it a unfortunate mix of both?
I think it's an unfortunate mix of both. I mean, it's. I mean, this is a team that still has problem scoring goals
Hmm.
at some points. It's still a team that has problems with their special teams. Thankfully, they didn't allow any power play goals the other night or last night against the Ducks. They were able to tally 2 power play goals, which was nice.
And the Ducks are
Um,
much improved compared to
oh yeah,
prior
no,
years with
yeah, absolutely.
Carlson and Gauthier.
That was last night's win was a quality win over the Ducks. Much needed, uh, especially the way that they went about it. They got 6 goals in. Obviously, one of those was an empty netter from DeBrincat. They got a couple of power play goals themselves. And perhaps more importantly, aside from the win itself, they didn't allow um, anything on the penalty kill,
Yeah.
um, which was a nice change of pace from the other night when I think they gave up like 3 power play goals, um,
I
which
try to
was
I think I'm kind of proud of myself for how much I've forgotten about that game versus the Blackhawks on the Sunday. Which yeah, I know Chicago's better than prior years and everything like that, but to lose 5-1 to them, I still feel like a young team. Um, yes, we had all the shots on goal, but that's almost as frustrating. Um,
No, there's no excuse for it. And the thing against that Blackhawks, and yes, they had more shots on goal than them, but there were like zero quality chances. I mean, the offense, um, I mean, there was nothing there. There was no substance in those shots on goal. I mean, you weren't giving yourself any opportunity in that sense. You're just throwing shots on net and that's it.
yeah,
Um, and was equally as frustrating with something like that is that was coming off of a game that you lose 4-1 to the New York Rangers. And over the course of those three games, Golden Knights, Rangers, and Blackhawks, you only score a total of 2 goals
yeah.
in that 3 game stretch right there, which again is unacceptable. Um, and again, I mean, it's certain things that are still haunting this team. And again, it's their inability to score goals. Now, the good thing is, or the, possibly the positive thing about all of this, or something that you kind of look back to is, you know, some of this is happening with younger guys in the lineup right now.
Yep.
Whether it was Nate Danielson that for that game against Chicago when he first came up.
Played
Um,
17 minutes last night.
yep. And
I think it was
if you're
17,
going,
17 or 11.
yeah, and if you're going to lose those games, you want to lose those games with those guys in the lineup because you figure if you're going to lose those games, you might as well start to get your young guys experience in those, playing meaningful NHL games. Um, so I mean that's
Most,
something to take from it. And
yeah.
then go ahead.
I was going to ask you, one also goaltending too. I think I do want hopefully John Gibson leaving early yesterday wasn't too like it was more of hopefully it's precautionary. Cam Talbot came in did pretty well. Um, but I feel not as concerned not I don't say as concerned with goaltending. I feel like it's obviously goaltending is dependent on how the team defense does, but I feel like that from what we've seen so far is relatively good. But my question that I was also going to ask you is who's been your like whether you say standout player from this team this season so far to start this season, or one that's like kind of like doing a little bit maybe better than you were imagining to start the year.
Um, for me, it's this may be a little bit of a cop out. That's not a pun because I'm not going to name cop as my standout
Oh,
player.
first Dennis in the Tunnel Talk chat. Now you.
I figured you'd appreciate something like
I'll
that.
give you that. I'll give you that. Well done.
It's Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah.
Alex DeBrincat, who started out the year slow. I think there was some people starting to worry.
Started off slow, but still averaging a point per game with the
Sure,
assists.
sure, but you're not bringing Alex DeBrincat
You're
in this
bringing him to
team to
score.
you're bringing him in to score, not get assists. And he started to come around, which is important, which is extremely important
Yeah.
for a team that has trouble scoring goals.
Hmm.
If Alex DeBrincat isn't scoring goals more times than not, the entire team is going to be having trouble scoring goals. So if
Yeah,
Alex
because then
DeBrincat
you
isn't
ask
scoring
Lucas
goals, yeah,
Raymond, and if Lucas Raymond's banged up, then we're screwed.
exactly. So for me, it's Alex DeBrincat without question.
I would go. It's tough because I feel like if we had recorded a week or two ago, I would have said Dylan Larkin, who I think has gone up a level. I don't know if it was the little mini back and forth with Steve Eiserman, um, while
I
not
think
directed.
Dylan Larkin is maybe one of the most disrespected players on this team. But go ahead.
I also was going to say too. I feel like Dylan Larkin. I've been trying to make a point more to catch more like the daily skate comments, the skate media sessions, the Matt post game interviews, and everything like that. And I feel like there's a significant difference for me of a Todd McClellan ran Detroit Red Wings than a Derek Lalonde ran Detroit Red Wings. And I feel like when you look at how Todd McClellan, when I listen to Dylan Larkin in interviews and everything like that, or his messaging or in his comments and stuff, it's like he's like sitting on it. I wonder how much is he like just is Todd McClellan mentoring that dude right now? Because I feel like they're like left brain, right brain right now.
Yeah, I mean, and Todd McClellan is a guy who is very, very blunt in
And I
his
think that's why I love him.
yeah, it is in his delivery. Even after that Chicago game when they asked him about Nate Danielson, he said, um, basically that he's forcing us to evaluate some of these other players on this team and whether or not, and guys that we may have to make some decisions on. Um,
And Rasmussen then scores a snipe that we hadn't seen in a long, long time. So maybe that's like a method that works.
yeah, I mean, and again, you hope that, and something like that is, I think, a healthy way of going about things, in this sense, because you want to challenge your guys, you want to challenge these players to be better, um, and if they're not, then you've got to start looking at other avenues to get better, which could include sending some of these guys to the minors, trading them, releasing them, whatever. Um, and you see where Todd McClellan came from, and you hope that, and you assume that he's doing it better at motivating these guys than a guy like Mike Babcock did, where
Hmm.
shit became toxic in that locker room, and
Bit too
um,
personal.
yes, absolutely, and that was one of my worries though when they brought Todd McClellan here, as I was thinking, I'm like, oh no, is he going to be too much like Mike Babcock? Um, in that things are going to get toxic in that locker room, and he's going to lose it. And so far, I mean, I don't have any complaints really about Todd McClellan and how things have been going.
I think he's one of those that's like he's stiff and he's got his ways on there, but he's also I think talked about evolving with the game because I think he was on the conversation line with which is on the Wings YouTube with Ken Cowan, Danielle, and Bruce, and talked about basically um, players are going to ask a lot more questions with that. Be prepared for those type of things. And even with his coaching with Trent Yanni, like he's really hard on Trent, and sometimes Trent's really hard on him. So it's almost like, if you're going to give it and you're going to deliver, sometimes you got to be prepared to take it as well.
Sure.
And I think that's accountability. And they go from there. So what we got? What's their remaining? Their next four or five. They're home to Buffalo tomorrow. They're at the New York Rangers on Sunday. And then what's upcoming here in an Atlantic that's starting to get a little bit jam packed. Um,
So they've got the Sabres obviously tomorrow, and then they turn around to head to Madison Square Garden on Sunday. So they've got a tough,
now
back to
it's
back this weekend.
that'll be tough.
Um, and then they come back home to play Seattle. They're actually at home for the next three. Tuesday they play Seattle at home. They get a rematch against the Islanders um,
On the
on
20th.
Thursday on the 20th, and then they take on the Blue Jackets, not tomorrow, but the following Saturday at home before hitting the road again, take on the Devils, and then they come back home at the end of the month to play the Predators at home, Lightning at home, and then final game of the month, for the month that is, they hit the road to take on the Bruins in a home and home.
Nashville's the night before Thanksgiving, the 27th or 26th.
26, yep.
Okay, that's the so they're at LCA the night before. So yeah, I mean, we're getting near the point. Where's this team at Thanksgiving? Where's this team at Christmas? Where's this team at the Olympic break? 10-7 to start the year is a good start. I think it's better
Sure.
than what I was anticipating. You're 9-4. You were what, 5-1. You were 9-4. A lot of ebbs and flows, but I think yeah, like you said, it's going to be very. These next few games, I think will by the time December 1st starts, we might get an idea. Will be, one be more than a quarter of the way done through the season, and two,
And no, and unlike the Pistons too, I mean the Red Wings play in a very, very difficult Eastern Conference. So
very very difficult Atlantic Division, which has
yes.
seen the Eastern representation of the Eastern Conference.
Hmm.
I think the team that's been in the Wins division has come out of this represented this been in the Stanley Cup final each of the last 7 seasons.
Hmm.
That's the benchmark.
Yep.
I think that's it for me on wings. You're now we'll go for our final quick stuff to get to wrap things up.
What do we have? Just
Tigers.
Tigers. That's right. GM meetings wrapping up today. Tarek Skubal, still still a Tiger. And it's what's funny about this, Garrett, is you're really starting to see like um heading into the GM meetings, it sounded like Tarek Skubal was pretty much gone at that point.
Right.
Um, and then all of a sudden, coming out of the GM meetings, Tarek Skubal isn't going anywhere. The Tigers are going to keep him around. And one of the reports I heard is that he was going to, they were going to keep him at least until the trade deadline in for, this upcoming season and evaluate things from there. Um, GM Jeff Greenberg said that they were going to prioritize pitching this offseason, um, despite what they already have. You assume that they Jack Flaherty um, executed his option for this upcoming season, which you assumed he was going to do.
Right.
Uh, you've got Olson presumably coming back or being ready to go once the season starts. Obviously, Jackson Jobe is still going to be on the shelf coming off Tommy John surgery. Um,
Jose Urquidy declined his option.
yep, which isn't
Um,
surprising. Casey Mize obviously is going to be back this year. So you already have Skubal, Flaherty, Mize, and assuming Olson. So all of a sudden you have one more spot opened up at the end there. Um, do you think that that's going to go to a guy uh like Sawyer Gibson Long, or do you think that they're going to try to fill that role with somebody on the free agent market?
I think if they stick within Troy Melvin's the front runner.
Troy
Um,
Mel, yep.
when you look at how confident now, the problem that could be benefit to that is Troy Melton, I think, will have had enough film on him now, especially when you look at his long relief appearances after the Charlie Morton deal and in his playoff appearances where teams might be able to do a little bit more research on how to approach him at the plate. With that being said, motivation, starting pitcher back on there, he could also be like ready to take it up another level. But I also think that when I see Jeff Greenberg talk, if he's talking about pitching, um, first things I look at the setup and I look at the eighth inning and your ninth inning. Are you going to keep Will Vest as your ninth inning guy? Or you want to keep him or do you want him more of a 7 or 8? I think Will Vest has made a case to be a ninth inning guy, night in, night out, as many as possible. Kyle Finnegan is to me your guy. Get him wrapped as few can for your eighth inning, but you need more of the sixth and the seventh inning guys. Tyler Holton, a little bit of a not a full step down this past season, but not as like fire. consistent fire as 2024. And then just a lot of uncertainty, I feel like, in the bullpen at times. Like, it was
Bo Brisky had a down year this past
yeah,
season.
and he got hurt. Alex Lane has been hurt and banged up. Alex Lane, I think, just got moved. It was because the Tigers made a move. Alex Lane was
Yep.
designated. Um, you what's the situation with Chris? Is Chris Paddock going to come back and be a lone reliever type thing? Um, unless they made a move on that. I'm trying to remember. I thought there might have been something to make announced about that. Or it was the other Twins. Losing my train of thought on that. But I think that could be the thing too, because yes, they're going to probably try to make a move for Alex Bregman. Gleyber Torres, they made the qualifying offer for, I think it was what, 1 year, 23.5 mil, 22.5 million.
Yeah, and
Gleyber Torres
he's
has
and they
until Tuesday.
yep, and they're gonna keep and apparently Gleyber Torres is keeping it on the table. Obviously, he's gonna shop himself around,
Hmm.
see what other deal he could potentially muster, but he will consider that qualifying offer.
Because I think the average was it Jeff Passan or it was Passan or Woodbury or it might have been Morosi. It was one of those John Paul Morosi where they were talking about if Gleyber Torres is going to get a multi-year deal, it's probably going to be a three year 45 range. So like average of 50. So it'd be an average and AAV of like 15. So, if you're Glaber, do you take a $7.5 million payday for 1 year, get your hernia, fully build up for sports here, or do you want to try to get some stability for a little less money?
Yeah. Um, and if you're the Tigers, you too have options when it comes to infield. Obviously, if you want to go after Alex Bregman, you can do that. Um, if you
Big question is
possibly,
going to be Kevin McGonigal, obviously, with
and
the
that's what I
fall
was just gonna,
falling MVP.
and that's what I was just gonna bring up as well is does Kevin McGonigal play a role in those decisions heading into the 2026 season.
Yeah.
Because, like you just mentioned, he was just named the Arizona Fall League MVP. There was talk about him coming up at the end of the season last season, which a lot of people were criticizing the front office for not making that move, and I would have liked to see that move made too, just to
Right.
see where they're at and what they could have done, because at that point the Tigers were slipping, and it came to a point where you didn't even know if they were even going to make the playoffs. So there's that, and there's also Bo Bichette too. Bo Bichette is out there, and
Hmm.
there's been some discussion too, some rumors, or not really rumor, but flying around as to whether or not the Tigers were going to go and try to make an offer at Bo Bichette, which most of the speculation that I'm seeing is he's probably going to go back to Toronto. Um,
Yeah.
but Bo Bichette is an option out there as well if the Tigers want to make a run at him, and kind of tinker around with the with the infield in that sense. If you want to put Bo Bichette over at third, Javier Short, and maybe Colt Keith at second, or you can, in some sense, maybe move Javi out to center field.
Yeah.
If you want to put Bo Bichette at third and maybe McGonigal at short and Colt Keith at second. There's a bunch of different options that you can do,
Right.
especially, you know what? Javi going out there and playing as well as he did at center field last season, all of a sudden opens up a bunch of different possibilities
And I
for you
think the
heading
thing,
into next season. So
and I was gonna say whether it was Javi Baez, Shemai Jones, Juancil Perez, they proved to be, especially Javi Baez, fielding and the bat. I think we witnessed that how much AJ Hinch values Parker Meadows when he's playing, to especially because he's even said this in the exit interview on the Monday after the ALDS exit was he's willing to sacrifice plate appearances for su- successful plate appearances by Parker Meadows just because of the glove defensively, which I didn't like.
yeah,
Spoiler alert. But it's kind of like, but can you do that? Continue to do that, especially when you had the end season collapse that you did. This team's ready to take looking like they're ready to take more of the next step. the Colt Keith situation, if Kevin McGonagall's ready to go also too, you might have another logjam because you had Colt Keith taking reps at first base last year, and well, Spencer Torkelson rebounded 30 home run season. So, are you going to split first? Kerry Carpenter now should be a day in, day out, provided he stays healthy, which is always the concern. Whether it's right-handed or left-handed, he should be day in, day out right fielder or DH
Well, either
because
way, I mean, the biggest hole in the lineup is going to be at third base. You got to figure
yeah,
out third base, and you got to figure out third base. You got to bring a bat that's going to be able to fill third base,
yeah, because you can't
or
rely on
help.
Zach McKinstry throughout the entire year. I
No,
feel like.
no, absolutely not. Let's continue on though, because
Yep.
let's finish
We're,
things up tonight.
Yep. Also, congrats to Eric Skubal, consecutive Cy Youngs. He did say he wanted to stay, so we'll see how that goes. Detroit City FC, a season that was 84 plus years, even though it was 8 months, ended on this past Saturday by way of penalty shootout in the Eastern Conference semifinals of USL Championship, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Um, Weekend after there for the second time in 3 years, beating the best team in the best regular season team at that time with their 1-0 knockout of Louisville City. If you follow some of our other stuff, we made our opinions on the match. They didn't go the way we thought we would, and people led to give their thoughts on that. To then get to again, we say to those, thanks for checking us out. We really appreciate it. Second of all, now's the fun part. A team that with head coach Danny Dichio currently out of contract, with a not yet announced sporting director by the club, but you're starting to see players that were either out of contract with club options for 2026 have already been taken to social media, basically implying that their time with Detroit City FC has come to an end. So far, we have seen Jay Chapman, Alex Villanueva, and Dominic Gasso. As so far as the three, unless there's others that have come up. So we are at a very interesting time, Adam, with wondering like what is Detroit City's next move going to be because there's a lot of pieces that are going to be needed.
Well, I mean, the one that raises the most eyebrows is Dom Gasso because Dom Gasso has a
Had
his
two
he
year options for 2 years.
yeah, he had options for 2 years. Villanueva and Jay Chapman, I think, were without a contract. I think their contract expired or will expire on November 30th. Um, so I mean, I don't know if there's any real surprises with this aside from Dominic Gasso. I mean, because the club could release an announcement, in the next week or so that yes, Alex Villanueva's contract ran out. However, we decided we're going to go and try to negotiate something new with him. He didn't make it sound like that, but I guess, it could be possible. Um, but like I said, I thought the one that raised the eyebrows for me was Dominic Gasso just because he did have some club options. And if those options are being denied, these aren't just guys whose contracts are expiring. And, even if you don't have a sporting director, it's just like, okay, whatever. Um, Contracts are over with, that's it. Easy decision. However, there is a decision to be made though with Dominic Gasso in not picking up those club options for him.
Yeah,
So my question is, who's making those decisions? If you don't have a head coach whose contract is also run out, and you don't have a sporting director who you canned over the summer,
3+ months ago with no
yes,
interim.
who is making those decisions? Who made the decision to decline the club options for Dom Gasso?
Two other player options that we're not certain about that could be vague based off of Instagram are also Haruki Yamazaki and Kobe Hernandez Foster.
Did Kobe mention anything on Instagram?
Kobe did a post about old friends, old family, and new family over the course of a season a few hours ago, and it was like a handful of photos and everything like that. So, it was like a reflection post, didn't really have anything. Hiroki Yamazaki's was a bunch of photos with with hashtag grateful. What does that mean? Does that mean is he back? Is he thanking for the year? Is he coming back? Who knows on that? Those ones will probably
The Kobe one would be incredibly disappointing, especially from the standpoint that they don't have a sporting director that we know of making a decision on a guy like Kobe Hernandez Foster, who
effort was made to bring him in.
effort was made to bring him in, and he was effective. He was very effective this season. Why he didn't get played down the stretch as much as he should have been played, who knows? But you would think that maybe that's one of the reasons why Danny Dichio may not be back for City next year.
And we went into greater detail in that it makes City make sense, and also I know will probably be talked about in Tunnel Talk for our centrics, but for our
See,
centric,
you're catching me in real time with the Kobe thing because I didn't know that.
yeah, that was a few
Um,
hours ago, so we'll have to take a look at that.
and
So,
that kind of and that would really really piss me off if they
mhm.
are making that decision on Kobe Hernandez Foster. Um, if a sporting director isn't making that decision,
And
that's
again, that's the thing too, is if they have landed a sporting director and haven't yet announced it, that again is a concerning thing because, you know,
well,
we have our concerns
well,
with
that I mean that falls in line with the way City seemingly does business when it comes to their media relations, um, and it forces assholes like us to speculate. So, not a fault of our own.
assholes, ass clowns. I feel like we've
Yeah.
heard all insert whatever here. Um, so yeah, that'll be it on there. Latest episode, Make City Make Expenses out on the Majors TV YouTube and wherever you check the podcast out. Channel 451 Tunnel Talk should also be dropping something relatively soon. I feel like they're chatting, they got ideas, who knows.
No,
Um,
we didn't record this past week, but
they
they'll
didn't
record.
record this past week, but I think they are going to want to do something upcoming. So, but there
Yes.
also should be some news coming out, official news from the club about out of contract players and club options.
Apparently,
Um,
Red may have a surprise too, which for Tunnel Talk.
We'll see how take that as you may. Official announcements on players with existing contracts going into 2026 and beyond aren't going to be allowed to be announced until after the USL Championship final. That is on November 22nd. So starting on the Monday the 24th is when you can start to see some details about that. So what that means, who knows? Stay tuned, folks. I think that covers a good amount, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah, let's yeah.
Yeah. So thanks again for checking out another edition of Detroit City Sportscast. We'll try to get another one of these, whether full form or quick form, in a little bit of a more format. There might be some stuff coming up, Piston specials with Matt again, or Tigers talk with Mike if some big news comes out on there. But in the meantime, thanks for checking us out. Brad Hernandez, Garrett Comments. See you later. Thanks again for checking out the latest episode of Detroit City Sportscast. For more of this type of content, go to detroit.themajorsports.com where you can see not only this, but all prior episodes of Detroit City Sportscast, along with our other Majors Detroit content, whether it is the Mulling Over Detroit Sports, any of our post-match recaps, or Make City Make Spends and Channel 451 for our Detroit City centric content. Additionally, we are on YouTube at the Majors TV. Be sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we're on social media. Twitter and Instagram, we are at TMSNX Detroit. Blue Sky is TMSNXDetroit.bsky.social. Also, we are on Facebook at the Majors Detroit. And if you check out your podcast in audio form, you can find us at the Majors Detroit. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way towards helping out everyone here at the Majors Detroit in their efforts. Thanks again for checking this out. Catch you later.